the actual situation of the kids.
Domenica, hi.
Yeah?
Hello, I'm Abhishek. I'm from
Yes,
Arise,
hi,
and
Abhishek.
I would like everyone to mute their microphones and to also cancel their videos so that only Dominica's screen is available. And we can click on the Dominica Samawe screen so that her screen appears on everyone's computer.
So should I mute my speaker?
Yeah, so I will be sharing my screen.
Yes, I think Dominica, you can go ahead with your presentation,
Okay,
and then later on
okay, it's
I'll talk
just
about
that okay, I'm sharing my screen right now. So can everyone please confirm that you can see my presentation?
Yeah, I can see it.
Can everyone else see the presentation? Okay, so I will begin. As I said, and welcome back to our webinar. This is just a fast review of some statistics and some numbers that will portray the reality and the situation of the children with visual impairment. I like to point out that my major sources are the World Health Organization Media Center fact sheet, the International Review of the Literature of the Evidence of Best Practice Models and Outcomes in the Education of Blind and Visually Impaired Children, which took place in the United Kingdom, and the National Agenda for Education of Children and Youth with Visual Impairment, including those with multiple disabilities, that took place in 1998 in the United States. So, to begin with, according to the World Health Organization, there are 285 million people that are visually impaired in the entire world. Out of these, 39 million are blind and 246 million have low vision. About 90% of the world's visually impaired lived in developing countries. And 80% of all visual impairment can be avoided or cured. Now, these graphs are self-made from the information provided by my sources. So, according to the National Agenda, this is the percentage of the age of blind people worldwide. We can see that 58% of blind people is 60 years and over. 32% of the blind people are between the ages of 45 and 49. 7% are between the ages of 15 and 44, and 4% are 14 and under. We should really pay attention to these numbers between the ages of 15 and 44 and 14 and under. Even if it seems that it's lower than the older people, whenever they have an issue and whenever there is a visual impairment present, it is important to diagnose it and to treat it at an early age. Now, what percentage of kids actually go to post-secondary schools? As we can see, only 27% of individuals with a disability are able to continue their post-secondary education, in contrast with 68% of the general population. And 57% of visually impaired youth actually attend post-secondary schools. This is encouraging because we can see that some tools, some technology are being provided in order for them to continue with their education. And this information was provided by the International Review. Also, once the post-secondary education process is through, we all need to become productive members of society. So the individuals aged 21 and up usually get a job. Now, according to the International Review, 84% of individuals aged from 21 to 64 are actually employed and they don't have a disability, in contrasting with almost half of only 41.5% of visually impaired employed individuals, meaning that they don't have the resources, or maybe they just couldn't finish with their whole educational process to become productive members of society, or that it's hard for some enterprises to provide the appropriate and adequate work conditions in order to guarantee them security and the ability to develop in their job. Now, as I mentioned, early intervention is crucial. Even if we see that combined it's only 11% of the population, this accounts for children and youth. As we can see, the first persons that can talk to the parents about early intervention include the educators, pediatricians, and other professionals in the areas of health. Now, usually, as we can see, there are also other professionals involved in this process of awareness and letting the parents know about why early intervention is important and why they should carry it out. And in the main professionals that intervene in these, we can account for counselors and educators, the ophthalmologist, who is generally who assesses the children and gives out the diagnosis, also the pediatrician, the nurses, and neurologist. Another thing that is important to point out is that usually a visual impairment won't be present alone. 65% of the time, there will be another disability in the children, and the visual impairment can come as a secondary cause of that other disability, or can be an effect of this disability. Now, what kind of disabilities are related to the visual impairments? We can account for the Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, a delay in development, hydrocephaly and microcephaly, also seizure disorders, and we can also take into consideration other disabilities. Like there are multiple sensory disabilities in which the children will only not present a visual impairment, but also an auditory impairment, or we can account for another motor impairments in the children. This according to the national agenda. And now, in the classroom, it's really important that when the professionals and the teacher are assessing the children in their educational process, that they can really account their needs, and then they create an environment in which they feel comfortable in and can be actively involved. As we can see, only 25% of the children receive the handouts in their preferred format, meaning that if they felt more comfortable with a bigger print or with a stronger contrast, the teacher will pay particular attention to this and actually hand out this to the children. 33% of the children felt left out of the classroom activities because of their impairment. And half of these children avoided some of the courses because of some practical problems. These practical problems include seizing and manipulating the material, displacing the material in the space, or even just locating him or herself with the material, like a scissor, a ruler, a pencil. And this data also took into consideration what kinds of schools were available for children. We can see that only 10% of the schools were for kids that have visual impairment and complex needs. Complex needs means that there is another disability or that there is another impairment related to the visual impairment. We can see that 70% of the kids with complex needs receive their education at specialized schools, and 50% of the parents were not in touch with the local authority services that could provide them with a choice of school. And we are still left with that 33% of children that felt left out of the class activities because of their disabilities. Now, I don't know the cases in each particular country, but at times in the developed and developing countries, the teacher will need an assistant to help him to access and to work with the kids. In the United Kingdom, 34% of the teaching assistants were hired by visual impairment services, meaning that they had screening, meaning that they had a proper training and that even if they had a proper training, if other needs, if other things came up, they could be easily helped. And that 41% of the assistants were hired directly by school, meaning that the schools were the responsible of the training of these assistants and to ensure that they had the characteristics to work with the kids and to trigger their development. Now, looking at these numbers, I got into a series of recommendations. My first one is to involve the parents in the child's educational process. Parents are a child's first teacher. They will know their kid better than we do, and they will actually tell the teacher what they can expect and what they can achieve. This communication is important in order for us to trace realistic goals for the children. The training of teachers and teaching assistants is essential. They need to continue with the training even after they got a diploma. It's not enough to say, hey, I'm specialized certified teacher. There is always new technology coming along. The information is being constantly updated. New needs are emerging constantly. So this professional training, this update has to continue in order for us to really trigger and meet the children's needs. Also, it's really important to let the parents know that early diagnosis and intervention are crucial. The earlier we know what the children has, or the earlier we understand the impairment or the condition, it is going to be easier, and the goals that are traced are going to be met easily. Also, we can take advantage of the children's sensory period in order for them to ease and smooth all of their learning process and to acquire more than they really need. And in the case that we do find other conditions and other disabilities, we need to consider, is the visual impairment the main or the secondary reason for the children's need? What do I need to assess first? And how is this other condition limiting or triggering the child's visual impairment? And the daily activities that we do in class, teachers must consider how can they be adapted in order to include, in order to integrate the visually impaired children, and also to let all the children learn from them and how this makes them feel and how they can help and how they can become involved and how they can participate with the kids and just trigger the inclusion in class. All of the practical problems that arise in class can be assessed. So the children don't really have to avoid the courses due to these problems. We just need to assess them, and we need to have some kind of adaptation. And also we need to be aware of the limitations that we can encounter along the way, and just let the children do and express themselves and to take advantage of their strength. Because yeah, there is an impairment, but there are also going to be strengths. So children don't have to avoid their courses just because practical problems will rise. And also, when we give the children an appropriate training, when we learn how they learn, how they can make the use of the technology and the material available efficient, this is just going to boost their self-esteem. This is going to trigger others to realize that they can work and that they can do stuff in the classroom, and the children will be motivated to continue with the training and to take advantage of these tools that are available to all of them. And last, but I do think is the most important one, is to raise awareness among all the other people that we relate to on a daily basis. Parents can share their experiences with other parents. We, the teachers, can share what we do in the classroom, how we do it, what has worked for us, what hasn't really been working for us, and also to let other people know what visual impairment is, how can you detect it, who can help you, and basically who can you go to. As I said before, I don't know the particular case in every country, but my experience as a citizen of a developing country is that most of the time they really don't understand what is going on with their kids. They do understand that his or her development is not as normal as it should be, and parents start comparing, especially if they have other children. But they don't know who to turn to. They don't know who to speak to. So I think that teachers and health professionals can raise awareness among their community and the persons they relate to in every day, and also parents that have gone through this experience or that have children with visual impairment or any other condition, just to ease the other parents and to let them know that it happens, but that it can be accessed and that there are helps and instruments available to contribute and to improve the quality of life of the children. And now I like to hand the presentation over to Ankita and Afshisa of Arise so that they can share a little bit of what they do.
Thank you, Domenica. Hello, everyone. I'm Abhishek, and I'm from Arise. We are on the managing board of Arise Nonprofit, which is based in India, and we develop tools and technologies for visually impaired. Basically, what we have researched and found is that though even the visually challenged kids, they go to school, special schools in India, but when they go back home or in their hostels, they cannot learn and revise on their own because they need a constant attention of a teacher who can help them explore diagrams or who can help them explain concepts. So what we thought was really lacking for their education was self-learning resources. Why they need self-learning resources is because they cannot see as we do. So when you cannot see, you cannot learn from images, you cannot learn on your own, and you cannot explore that easily, any material. So we are trying to create easy resources, for example, audio-based educational modules which explain concepts that are being taught in the class. So these kids, for example, you can see in the pictures on the extreme left and the extreme right, they are holding headsets and they're listening to these audio lectures. So these audio lectures contain the concepts what are being taught in the class, and these have been tested for their quality, content, pace, and relevance. Now, one important thing that we found was that in these lectures, the pace needs to be really slow so that the visually challenged person can understand easily. Also, what we found about these lectures is that we need to put it in concept based rather than putting them on chapter based, because many of the chapters contains a series of concepts, and if we just break the chapter in a small chunk and concepts, that would really be effective for them to learn and understand those concepts. So that's what we did. And the impact of that was that more than 95% of these students left their Braille textbooks and they switched over to our audio-based modules. Also, these audio-based modules help these kids to come from second division to first division, especially in the subjects of history, civics, geography. In the middle picture, we have created another technology that we are working on, which is on helping the blind user to learn from maps and diagrams on their own. So in this system, we have a tactile based map or a diagram. A tactile map or a diagram is a diagram with raised objects, which the blind user can explore with his fingers and understand. Now, in the picture, in the middle picture, you can see that the blind user can explore the diagrams on the objects by himself. And there's a stand attached, and on the stand, there's a webcam. This webcam is connected to a PC or to a laptop. And the picture is taken and is put in that laptop or PC. Now, when the blind user is touching the diagram and exploring the diagram with his finger, the webcam captures the position of that finger on the diagram and maps it onto the computer picture on the computer. So whenever the blind user is touching any object on the diagram, the same object is selected in the computer and the information regarding that object is spoken out by the computer. So this technology is helping the blind user to learn on their own and revise diagrams on their own, which otherwise they cannot see and they cannot explore properly. This helps to provide them a guided navigation. With that, I would like to hand it over back to Domenica and to Ankita to open the floor to questions.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'd like to know if anybody has any question or any comment.
Okay, Dominica, why don't you share about your experiences as well? You felt that the information is out there and yet it doesn't reach the appropriate people. What do you think that can be done? And do you think that how do you spread information like that? Or how each one of us who has attended this can help in spreading that information?
One example is this webinar. We can just share it with our friends or among our colleagues. I will usually bring some material that I use at the classroom and just go through a colleague and ask her if she could find any use for this material for the kids, or if she knows how to use it, or if she had heard of this technology before. Also approaching the parents, and asking them what they know about the visual impairment of their kid, what have other professionals tell them about it. So just little by little, just person by person. Is there
Yes,
any other
and
question?
Andrew, to answer that, I think that's a very good point. And even I have not found many places where you can share best practices which are collated. Though I would also like to check up on that and get back to you. And maybe if that this is missing, I think Arise can also help in doing that, because we are doing these webinars to help the spread of information. But I think this is also one good idea or a good forum that we can also create.
Yeah, and also take advantage of the social networks nowadays. It's just a really easy way to attract people and just make them curious about the subject, because I don't know in India, but for instance, here in Guatemala, many people don't even know what visual impairment is. So you really start by letting people know what it is and how everyone can become involved. Any other question?
Also, we'll be sharing the recording of this on YouTube, so you can always ask other people, and you can always to see it, and you can share it with other people. And if they know any parent of any visually challenged kid, they can ask that parent to especially see this.
Yeah.